citizenry, including scholars, historians, lawyers, investigative journalists, and everyday civic-minded Americans who investigate, document, and report crimes committed by the president. An Office of Special Counsel, which investigates crimes committed by the president and recommends indictment. The House of Representatives, which impeaches or indicts the president for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. And the Senate, which acts as a jury to convict and remove the president. These are their stories.
Get ready for impeachment.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's got a new book out, and we want to talk about this. It's even worse than you think. Our ongoing occasional look in the Law and Order Get Ready for Impeachment. If anybody's been making a good case over the past year, and even before that, it's been David K. Johnston. What the Trump administration is doing to America, it's even worse than you think. David, how are you, man? Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year, Mark. Good to be on with you again. I love that opening.
Well, thank you, man. I thought you would. So you talk in the book about how it's even worse than we actually believe. Let's begin with what's, I guess, most prominent right now with the shutdown and the aftermath of the shutdown. This whole thing about immigration and this wall. You know, John Kelly went up on the Hill and said that's not even a real thing. Schumer and others agreed to fund the wall. They had a deal. And he still wouldn't do it. There's even this speculation that Stephen Miller is really calling the shots in the White House. He didn't even seem functional. He seemed very dysfunctional in the whole negotiation. He was all over the place. What's really going on with him?
Well, you know, Donald sold himself to the public as the great negotiator. He's a con artist and a grifter. And the Republicans today are out saying, we got exactly what we wanted out of this. We're very, very, very happy. But the reality is we have a president who doesn't know what he's doing. And unfortunately, in the news coverage, we're doing too much of Donald's crazy behavior, his erratic behavior that I told people we were going to see because, as you know, I've known him for 30 years and covered him longer than any other journalist. But what we're not paying attention to is what's going on inside the government. And Trump isn't doing this. He works 5-hour workday. It's the people that came in with him, and they are doing horrible things to our government that will cause lasting damage. Even if Trump were to serve two terms, will continue way, way beyond his presidency. And that's getting almost no attention in the mainstream press.
And that is, of course, a very, very frightening. Give us some examples, David, of what's happening right under our noses, if we could prioritize some of those things.
Well, you know, Trump goes around saying that I love the veterans. He's a draft dodger, but he loves the veterans. Well, the Trump budget proposal was if you're a 100% disabled veteran, like my father was from World War II, when you reach retirement age, your roughly $35,000 disability income will be cut to $13,000 and plunge you into poverty. That's how much they want to help veterans. They want to round the checks that are sent to veterans. They want to round down in every case. Now, that's not a lot of money. It's like $12 million a year, but it's indicative of the fact that they say one thing and they do something quite different. In the student loan area, instead of fixing this ridiculous problem with student loans that we shouldn't even have, what they did is they brought in to fix it in Betsy DeVos's education department executives from the student loan companies. So this isn't like letting the fox loose in the hen house. It's bringing in the fox to design a new hen house. In environmental protection, the cutting of the regulations they've done is basically, hey, polluters go out and pollute. Worker safety. About 4,800 Americans a year are killed on the job, Mark. And they have not posted the death of an American worker on the job since last August. They've reduced the number of safety inspectors, and they've made it clear to the ones that are still there that, you know, you're not to do anything that would be significant. They're putting your health, your safety, your well-being at risk. And Trump particularly, Mark, has damaged our economy through a number of steps. He killed the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I was on your show some time ago criticizing it. I thought it had real problems that needed to be fixed. Trump kills it. He doesn't fix it. And so what's China done? Have you heard of the RCEP?
No.
That's the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership that China has put together, and it's 15 Pacific Rim countries plus India, and they're creating a trading bloc. We're not part of it. That means China will increase its military, political, and especially its economic influence in the Pacific. And China's ambassadors and trade representatives are going to the countries in the Pacific and to India and saying, pivot away from Washington. America's in decline. Look who's in their White House. Turn to us, China. We're the country of the future. You want to be connected with us if you want to be prosperous in the future. Hey, American workers, wake up. This guy doesn't know what he's doing, and your jobs are going to be in trouble because of it.
Yeah, that's very, very scary. You also talk about the wall too. He's saying that Mexico is going to pay for the wall. We know that that's not going to happen.
Right.
We already know that. But he's what you found is that it's actually in the long run, American consumers would end up paying for the wall, wouldn't it?
Yes. Here's what Donald did, Mark. This in addition to Donald's racism, which I think should be evident to everybody by now. He doesn't know anything about economics. He didn't earn a degree in economics at Penn. They gave him one. He said Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Mexico won't. So then what's his proposal? We're going to put a tariff on Mexican goods. We're going to raise the price of Mexican goods to pay for the wall. Well, a tariff is paid by purchasers. So Americans would pay for higher prices not only for Mexican goods, but any American companies could raise prices up to just below the tariff plus cost of Mexican goods, which means we'd pay higher prices for other things as well. Tomatoes that are grown in Texas would cost more because of a tariff on tomatoes grown in Mexico, and so we would be paying. How can anybody who studied economics not know that a tariff doesn't apply to the producer? It's borne, the cost of it is borne by the consumer, and the answer is, Trump has a college degree on his wall, but they gave it to him. He didn't earn it.
Yeah. Also, your book opens up with more about the kleptocracy. Is there anything new that we're learning about that, emoluments, et cetera?
Well, when Trump left the Capitol after the inauguration, he stopped his motorcade. The television camera that was on it, that all the networks broadcast, simply showed the Trump family getting out and taking a 2-minute turn on the pavement. They didn't tell you where they were, but everybody who's seeking favors from Trump knew. They stopped in front of the Trump Hotel. Mm-hmm. Trump himself had filed documents with the Washington, D.C. and federal governments indicating that they expected to lose money the first year they were open. They are making money hand over fist because he sent a signal. You want a favor from the Trump administration? You better pay tribute to me. Well, that's an absolute violation of the There's actually 3 references to emoluments in our Constitution. That's how important the framers thought it was. They did not want a president corrupted by outside money from foreign governments or from state governments and city governments putting money into a president's pocket to influence what he does. And the Republicans refuse to deal with this. They will not enforce the emoluments clause. Unfortunately, the one lawsuit that's come before a judge wasn't a very good lawsuit to begin with, and the judge dismissed it on the grounds partly that you had no right to sue. That's an interesting point. We don't have any right to enforce our Constitution as citizens. We have to rely on Congress and the courts, and if they don't do their job, what are we going to do?
Yeah. David K. Johnston with us, folks. His latest book, It's Even Worse Than You Think, What the Trump Administration is Doing to America. What about this tax bill? We've talked a lot about his taxes and the lack thereof. We have not seen them, obviously.
Well, except for the tax return I got last March.
Did you ever find out the source of that? It just popped up in your mailbox, didn't it?
Yes. Well, I'm pretty confident it came from Donald. Donald has always leaked stuff about himself, and it said client copy, and the envelope all suggests it came from Donald. When the sleazy porn pictures, and I don't mean art, I mean porn pictures of his wife appeared in the New York Daily News, and you would think a guy running for president would be screaming fake news or this is inappropriate, and they go, no, we're happy to see it in the paper. You know that Donald leaked that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't seen his tax returns. Robert Mueller's prosecutors have his tax returns. There's no question that would just be a basic fundamental thing for them to do, and they're a terrific team of people. I can tell you what they're going to find. Donald was tried twice civilly for tax fraud. He lost both cases. He's confessed to sales tax cheating. He has a long history of not paying workers, including illegal immigrants, not paying small businesses, supplying him with goods, and swindling investors. Surprise, surprise, Mueller's report's going to show he cheated on his income taxes. Now, they may not focus on that because they're going to be more concerned about the financial exchanges and connections with the Russians. That's the primary duty that was assigned to Mueller. And by the way, to anybody who thinks that it's not clear as to what was going on there, go to the Internet and read the email sent to Donald Trump Jr. by Rob Goldstone on behalf of the Russian government in 2016. And about 4 paragraphs down, you'll read, Mark, these words, or roughly these words, as part of Russia's effort to help. That isn't a, hey, by the way, we'd like to help. Would you be interested in hearing from us? That's a, we're already helping you, and this is further help. And there's only one thing any patriotic American should do if a foreign government, especially a hostile foreign power like Russia, offers you help in an election. You pick up the phone, you call the FBI and say, I need to speak to someone in counterintelligence. They didn't do that. They lied, they denied, they covered up. They've come up with 6 different stories. So when it comes to his tax returns and everything else he does, Donald Trump has no regard for the law. He doesn't have any regard for anything but himself, and we're going to see that he's cheated on his taxes, I assure you.
David K. Johnston's with us, folks. Now, as we opened this up and you talked about not just him, but his government and the things some of these characters are doing in his name and in their own names. I mean, isn't that pretty much crystallized in this latest shutdown drama? Because everyone is saying that Stephen Miller ran point on that.
Right. Well, Stephen Miller, who is another one of the racists brought into the White House, and he's pretty blatant about it, clearly drove this thing. As we enter season 2 of Donald Trump, the White House reality show, which is a farce. Look at what's happened to our country. Trump got 2 things done in his first year. A Supreme Court appointment that was denied to Barack Obama because Mitch McConnell discovered something in the Constitution none of us can find when we read it. And secondly, he got a tax bill heavily weighted to the top. More than 80% of the benefits go to the 1%, and about 60% are going to go to the 1/10 of 1%, the 1 in 1,000 people who make over $2 million a year. This is redistribution and favors for the rich by the rich. Mm-hmm. In this debate and the shutting down of the government, Donald Trump, when the government was shut down under Obama, said the president should be there. He should take care of all this. He should be actively involved. Where was he? How come he couldn't make a deal? Because he's not a great negotiator. I've had to negotiate with Donald many times in my life, and he's not a great negotiator. And he doesn't know what to do. He has no government experience. He's never served a day of public service before he took the oath of office. And Mark, I marvel that there are people who still go around telling you what a great president he is.
Yeah, it is unbelievable.
He doesn't know what he's doing, and it really says something about the state of our democracy,
right, that
anybody thinks he's anything but a raging incompetent.
Indeed. It's even worse than you think, what the Trump administration is doing to America. David, congratulations on the book. We're going to have you back and you drill down even more in the days and months to come, and we always appreciate your expertise as the foremost investigative journalist and biographer and authorized on Donald Trump. Okay, man?
Well, Mark, thank you. And tonight, if you have listeners in Baltimore, I'm speaking in the African American department at the Enoch Pratt Library downtown.
That's great. Folks, the Enoch Pratt Library, everybody in Baltimore under the sound of our voices, go and check out David, and he'll be signing his book, It's Even Worse Than You Think. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mark.
Talk again real soon. Keep up the good work, man.